material. I think that's an individual debate for every family to have. I'm not sure if that is an argument that the general population really has a right to dictate. Now, we might have societal standards that we place that this is not acceptable, like obviously blatant nudity of a female or male body might be inappropriate for someone under the age of 18. Obviously, we have laws in place to protect children, but I've seen plenty of 16, 17-year-olds that are much more mature than some adults that I've seen. Now, and that's not always the case, and those examples are few and far between. And I'm sure most of us have been underage and have viewed sexual content, whether it's pornography, whether it's a swimsuit magazine, whether it's a Vogue magazine, for crying outside, or a GQ magazine. You can see examples of hypersexualization or over-sexualization or of the objectification of the human form in all of its incarnations in a variety of different settings. And Ben, that is a really, really good example, and that is an argument I think that needs to be left for individual families to kind of talk about, whether it's appropriate or not for your children to view what kind of material is appropriate for your children to watch. And I really think that it is up to the children and their friends. Joe, you want to post a link to ratings? Yeah, Joe, I think that would be great. That'd be a great idea. I think it's tempting to think that you're mature, but the older I've gotten, the more I realize my own immaturity. You know, Gabby, that is another critical analysis that I am really happy that you said. That is so true. Even to this day, I'm almost 30 years old, and I still, to this day, I am still left with, there are still times when I'm like, I could have handled that better. I was not acting as mature as I could have. Any of you guys who have interacted with me on in the Twitch community has seen different sides of my personality and how I interact. There are times when I handle situations very maturely, and there are times when I don't. And I feel like I can do better, and I really should do better. I feel that video games take a lot of the blame for things that have been on TV and print, film, since these formats. Very true, AOC. That is very, very true. That's why I want to talk about media. I don't want to just talk about video games. We're extending this topic to the media. That's why I specifically mentioned magazines. If you go to your supermarkets, actually, in a lot of supermarkets, you'll see a black cover slid over some People magazines, like makeup magazines, or like I said, GQ or Cosmopolitan. I think Cosmopolitan even. They have sliders to block that imagery because they feel it is very mature, and for some of these children that are walking around the stands, they shouldn't have to be subjugated to this very adult kind of themed material. Now, as a child, I could say, hi Artie, it's good to see you. As a child, I can say that I have been guilty of viewing material that was probably not appropriate to my age. I think as a lot of people would say, a young red-blooded male, it's only natural that you would see things like pornography or images of movies like Starship Troopers. I remember seeing Starship Troopers. AOC, we talk about this movie a lot. There's a shower scene in that movie, and there's like one or two sex scenes in that movie. I remember being a kid watching that and being, whoa, this is like, there's naked bodies on here. I grew up believing that was something you kept very private. It's not something you shared all the time. And seeing those bodies on screen exposed in such a way was like a shock. I'm not saying that I was offended. I'm not saying I didn't like it or appreciate it, but it did trigger something in me. Was I mature enough to view that material? I don't know. You know, I can't really say. And I think that's an excellent argument to have. Celebrity magazines are blocked everywhere, and banned and no one cared. You wish celebrity magazines were blocked. Hi, Vinny. So, Joe linked this ESRB ratings, and this actually is a really good site that features a lot. This has a lot of good content on it. If we look at it, you'll see a lot of different. They kind of break down the content ratings. Joe, thank you so much for sharing this. This is a really, really good example of what kind of dictates is appropriate. Now, this is a rating system developed by people that feel that they're enforcing their cultural norms. The problem with the ESRB is I'm not sure how the ESRB applies to different countries. I don't know if this is a United States only rating or a North America rating system. But in Japan, a rating system might be very, very different from what you would see here in the United States. If anybody has information about the ESRB and whether these standards are translated cross-culturally, I'd be really interested to know. It's NA only. Okay, thank you so much, Artie. Thank you for clearing that up. Okay, so right there, we already have it clear that these are North American standards of what is acceptable viewing for audiences. So that's a really interesting conversation to have, that this argument extends beyond what our culture, and by our culture, I am gonna go with the culture that I am familiar with, my North American culture, my white male privileged culture. Sorry, that was a little jab joke at some jokes that were made at our expense. That's funny to reveal. So it's kind of interesting. So they have these categories broken down into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different ratings. There's one for early childhood, an E for everyone plus. I didn't know childhood and everyone plus existed. See, I thought it was E, teen, M, A, and then RP. I did not know there was even those different categories between that. So apparently, even everyone games might not even be appropriate for toddlers. I'm assuming that early childhood games focus more on developmental, like the development of cognition. So they're like small, little, colorful puzzle games that help children develop their cognitive skills, their problem-solving skills, their pattern recognition skills, and stuff like that. I want some privilege. Hey, Doc, it's good to see you. So we have early childhood, everyone. So this is okay. So everyone content is generally suitable for all ages. May contain minimal cartoon fantasy or mild violence. Frequently use of mild language. So they might say like stupid, shut up, things of that matter. I'm assuming. Everyone plus content is generally suitable for ages of 10 and up. May contain more cartoon fantasy, mild violence, mild language, minimal suggestive themes. So apparently, everyone plus 10. So they're saying that by our North American standards, we're saying by the age of 10, children are already ready to experience some suggestive themes. So by the age of 10, our country, our hemisphere of the world has already acknowledged that children essentially are sexual beings. Okay, we don't want to view children, and in this culture, we do not view children as sexual beings for a very real reason, for a very good reason, for a very arguably a good reason. I'm not saying that is the standard. That's not saying it has to be, but it's kind of interesting to see this rating. That why is this rating important? Why is everyone 10 so specific? As I've said, our rating system is saying by the age of 10 that 10-year-olds and up are ready to see suggestive themes. I'm assuming that suggestive themes relate towards possible romance or sexual content. Possibly like drug use, paraphernalia use, maybe things of that nature. Maybe like if you take like I don't know if like Mario taking a mushroom and growing bigger, if that would count as a suggestive theme. I don't know. I'm not sure. Hi, Vermo. Gage, it's good to see you. Thank you guys for stopping in and joining us today. We have, and then we have the rating teen. Content is generally suitable for ages 13 and up. May contain violence, suggestive themes, crude humor, minimal blood, simulated gambling or infrequent use of strong language. So apparently, children that are 10 are not. It's not acceptable for them to learn gambling, but it is acceptable for them to learn some suggestive themes. Now, I don't know how that is really like broken down, and if it is more like the differences between what I would like to know what they feel suggestive themes are. Like what are those suggestive themes they're talking about? Mature content suitable for ages 17 and up may contain intense violence, blood, gore, sexual content, and strong language. So apparently 17-year-olds it's okay for them to view heavy violence games. So, but younger children are, maybe because they're still developing at a much more rapid pace, the ESRB feels that it's not appropriate for them to be viewing violence, but it is okay for them to see some blood, simulated gambling, and frequent use of strong language. It's kind of interesting how this is being displayed. And adult only, 18 and up. So lots of violence, lots of sexual content, gambling, and real currency. You know what's interesting about adults only? Would you guys consider? I would love to hear your guys' mild sexual stuff, really mild sexual stuff. Okay, so that is what suggestive themes, very mild sexual stuff. So maybe someone like in a tank top, maybe would that be minimal? That's a good. Okay, those are good. That's a good. I think that's a good example of that. Not minimal, but not a lot of content. Okay, so it's kind of it's kind of interesting to see. Like I want to know what you guys think about like God of War. Do you feel that God of War is an adults only game, or that is more of a mature game? There is a lot of new or Dante's Inferno is another really good. We actually beat that game on stream. Interestingly enough, Dante's Inferno is not, and God of War are not banned from Twitch, and yet a Honey Pop game is, which is much more cartoony and I would say playful than say God of War and Dante's Inferno is. So it's kind of interesting to see how different mediums or social networking sites or streaming sites, just on Twitch here, they even classify different games differently than may say what we will. Granted, games like Honey Pop or Sakura Spirit are much more sexually driven and focus exclusively on the overt sexuality of their characters, the exploitation of these young girls as sexual beings, and the over objectification of those women. Dante's Inferno, what a great publisher, huh? God of War is censored. AO games, not so much. Adult only games, not so much, are censored. What about, okay, Joe, can you tell me how is God of War censored? Because you see oftentimes the female breasts a lot of time. Dante's Inferno specifically features tentacles, a barbed tentacle that shoots forth from a woman's vagina, and it can impale you. I think it's Cleopatra. I think when you fight Cleopatra or Aphrodite. Is it Aphrodite? No, I forgot who the boss is of Lust. During the Lust stage, her nipples actually spew out soured milk children. So children with scythe arms come out of this woman's nipples, and you are forced to slaughter these things. So it's kind of interesting to see how games like those are not, in fact, adult only, and they're mature. When I think about it, and those games aren't actually banned on Twitch, but like as I said, a game like Sakura Spirit, which is much more playful in its sexuality and nowhere near I feel as graphic, because of the manner in which how the material is handled, is displayed. So it's kind of an interesting thing to see.